There's a small trick to doing authentication and authorization that had me flummoxed for ages when I was learning Flutterflow. I want to use an external API. In my case, that's usually an API that I control so that I can power my Flutterflow app without any limitations on features or scaling or integrations with third-party APIs. But I'm using Firebase Auth, and so I need a way to authenticate with Firebase, get a JWT token, and then use this token to authorize requests to my API so that the endpoints are protected from unauthorized calls. There's no dark magic happening when you pass your username and password to an app. The client, in this case your Flutterflow app, is just sending those credentials to Firebase, and Firebase comes back with a token. You can actually just do this in your terminal, the curl command. Just open a terminal and send a curl post request to the Google API for Firebase, which is this. Add your public API key to the URL and add your credentials. The token itself actually contains tons of info about me, and you can decode it using jwt.io. So keep your tokens secure, never share them. After your user logs in for the first time, the app will store this token. And for Firebase and also for Supabase Auth, it's going to refresh it in the background, so your user is always going to be logged in. And with every request to the external API, we're going to attach this token. As an example, I have an external API that I've written in Python that's configured to accept a token from the same Firebase project as the one my Flutterflow app is using. The thing that stumped me for the longest time was, how do I attach the token in Flutterflow? But actually, it's really simple. You create an API call or a group of API calls in Flutterflow, give it a name, and tell it what REST API endpoint you want it to talk to. Create a header, and this is the magic part. You must write it exactly like this. Authorization with a capital A, colon, space, bearer with a capital B, square bracket, auth token. We're going to make a variable out of this, so you can call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it auth token, and close bracket. Now, make a variable or a group variable if this is a group. Call it auth token or whatever you call the variable in the header, whatever you want, and give it type string. Beauty. Now you can create a backend call. And here's the second crucial part. When you invoke the API call, you assign the Firebase Auth JWT token to the auth token variable that we just created. You can actually see your API calls succeeding, or you can diagnose why they're failing by opening the browser console in Flutterflow's test mode. For that, you right-click and click Inspect, go to the Network tab, and for clarity, I like to filter it just to show the fetch or XHR requests. Now I'll run my backend query and see the BS endpoint that I made failing. It just fails because it's not a real endpoint, so 404. But it attached my JWT token to the request in the right format. And just to demo a working endpoint, here's my notifications endpoint. This one succeeds with 200. There's my token getting sent out in the request. And that allows me to get a response that's tailored to my user account. So there's only my notifications and no one else's, which would have been impossible without identifying myself by way of the token. The process will be similar with Supabase Auth, and Flutterflow now also has custom authentication, so you can use providers other than Firebase and Supabase Auth, although custom authentication is going to be a touch more complex. As always, drop a comment if you have any questions. Please do subscribe to the channel if you are finding this content helpful, and I'll be back soon in another video.